I found out the other day that in 2012, ada benda ni, nama dia Copenhagen Consensus, which was an initiative done by this guy. His name is Bjorn Lomborg, and he got some economists to research on kalau kita ada $75 billion to spend on improving the world, what should we prioritize on when we're spending this money? And so they did research across different areas, contohnya armed conflict, biodiversity, hunger, etc. It was interesting to find that the top solution they came to was to spend $3 billion over 4 years on a bundle of micronutrients, basically food and healthcare to feed children. This was striking to know. Also, it makes sense because when these kids can eat enough, they can stay in school for longer, and then they end up becoming more productive when they're adults. So I think there was another study I just found out about in 1969 in Guatemala, where they did something similar. They gave this group of kids this supplement. It's called atole, and it had protein inside, and they also gave healthcare. And then these group of kids, they had the healthcare but not the protein supplement. And so these kids were half as likely to develop stunting, and also were able to generate around 60% more income than their peers. I think we know that stunting isn't just a problem that happens far away or in some place in Africa or something. It's happening back home too. I think remember in 2016, Dr. Muhammad Khalid was talking about how stunting levels in Kelantan are actually higher than they were in Zimbabwe. And it's not clear why this is happening. One of the reasons he gave was the high price of dairy. Kalau benda macam susu mahal, it's hard to get into the diet, calcium and etc. and helping the kids grow. I think one lesson we can take from this is firstly is recognizing the importance of obviously helping the children, but also how do we apply this into our own lives? And I think this comes down to the idea of being able to prioritize, because whether we realize it or not, for example me, if I'm deciding what to do with my life, I have limited resources. So in this situation, contoh dibagi is duit. Kan kita kekurangan duit, so we have to decide what to do. In my own life, I have limited resources, including time. So maybe there's a million things I want to do, but which one should I prioritize, right? And so I think we need to find an equivalent of feeding the children, i.e. something yang kita boleh buat yang akan help us in many ways in the future. For example, studies. Sometimes we don't see it, maybe in high school, it's the worst place to be. Kawan kacau, and maybe we're having a really bad time, we're being bullied, etc. At the same time, understanding that maybe studies can help bring us out of this place. So maybe we should allocate more time to that and try to subordinate these other things to the most important thing. And I think that's important to hopefully be able to prioritize our goals and spend time doing the things that will give us the most return in the future. So I think that's something we should always consider. Or else we might risk doing things that are quick fixes. So we do things that make us feel good in the moment. Like the show Hell's Kitchen, where Gordon Ramsay goes, dia akan pergi kedai and then he would help them out. He would teach them maybe new techniques, new recipes, and then dia akan tolong decorate, and then the kedai becomes baru, it becomes a new shop. And then I think one of my friends told me, I found out that he would go back to the shop only to find that they wouldn't be as successful. And I think if that's happening, I think the reason why is because certain fundamental things aren't changing. Maybe the habits of the workers, etc., the work ethic. I think life, even though sometimes it feels like we need a quick fix, it's not about quick fixes. It's not just about being happy in the moment, but it's about doing things that will give us a better future, I guess, in the long run. And so prioritizing those things and trying to spend more time doing those things. So the solution of providing food and healthcare to the kids is ranked the highest in terms of the return per dollar spent. So then if we're spending $1, what do we get out of it? Just like if I spend 1 hour of my time, what's the estimated return I can get? That's how they rank the projects. I think the idea is to provide it to kids in developing countries. It's meant to be across a number of countries. Actually, this is something that we can do. We have the money and we have the ability to provide the kids with the food and the resources. It's just that if there's not enough focus towards it, then it won't be done as much as we should. And I think that's one thing we should think about. Even something like the cure to cancer might be in the mind of a child, and they may be in a situation where they're very likely to die from starvation, which is something preventable, let's say, with this sort of packages. That's important to know, because sometimes what we see is big problems in front of us that we have to spend a lot of money on to fix. Maybe it could be infrastructural, for example, right? Then maybe we forget that actually when it comes to thinking about the next generation, it comes down to the children, I guess.